Good morning and welcome to the Gold, Goats, and Guns Market Report for today, Sunday, September 6th, 2020. My name is Tom Luongo. We've got a lot to talk about, and I'm going to get right to it today. No preamble, no nonsense. So we need to talk about Alexei Navalny and Nord Stream 2, Germany, all of this stuff. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this today. I've got some other stuff that I've got to... Unfortunately, I've got other things on my head, and I took yesterday off because I wasn't feeling very well. But I want to talk about the situation with Nord Stream 2, Germany, and all the rest of it. I wrote an article on Friday talking about all the ins and outs of the potential politics and political struggle surrounding this. My good friend in Germany, Peter Spengler, reminded me that that Nord Stream 2 is not a done deal. That the United States has had a concerted and consistent policy against Russian pipelines into Europe since the Kennedy administration. And what's going on in the Trump administration today is no different. Now, those of you who don't know who Alexei Navalny is, the way this traces out is very simple. Alexei Navalny is a CIA asset and or MI6 asset who was promoted in the West, or up until recently, promoted in the West as the chief opposition to Vladimir Putin in Russia. This is nonsense. He's not. He never has been. He can't get 0.5% of the vote. He can't get more than 5,000 people to show up in Moscow Square, in the central square in Moscow, to protest anything that Putin does. He has literally zero support. Everybody in Russia knows that he's a Western asset. The Russian people are much more sensitive and much more hip to the whole color revolution, foreign agency thing than we are. They're much less propagandized at this point than we are. I find that really funny to say that. But our media has become nothing but a complete and utter propaganda / psyop engine. They continue to justify this activity using the same kind of Cold War tactics, saying the Russians and the Chinese are we're still fighting the same Cold War that we were 40 years ago, which is nonsense. They are, but we as a society aren't. Things have changed and they refuse to change their tactics and they refuse to change their strategy. They just refuse to change anything about their rhetoric or anything else. And so Navalny, as Alexander Mercouris pointed out to me the other day when I was chatting with him at Crypto Rich, which is on which I'm going to put together a link and a post to that 2.5 hour discussion I had with Alexander. I'll put a post together this afternoon and put it up on the blog for you guys to listen to if you want, or watch if you want. But Alexander reminded me that Navalny was a spent asset because when the constitutional referendum went through back in May, I think Navalny couldn't bring any kind of sincere opposition to it, and it passed, I don't know, 78 to 22 or whatever it was. It was on extremely high voter turnout. People were very pleased with it. By the way, look for a similar kind of constitutional reform to come to Belarus now that they've successfully defended against the color revolution there. Lukashenko, the price Lukashenko will have to pay in Belarus for his lack of vision and his continually ticking off Putin in order to try and, feather his own nest, is that he's going to have to step aside within the next 2 years, but not before this constitutional reform, devolving a lot of the power out of the presidency and back into the hands of the people. That will slow down the NGO activity within Belarus. So Navalny is a spent asset, and he also knows too much, and so he needs to be silenced. Because now that he's a spent asset, he becomes a threat to the West. He becomes a threat to his handlers, and he needs to be silenced. And so what better way to silence him than to try and stop Nord Stream 2 with this fake poisoning scenario? And that's exactly what this is. It's completely fake. It's completely false. And Trump knows it, and he came out and said effectively that the other day, but he's also not going to throw Germany under the bus explicitly, but he is. And it's all this kind of crazy, stupid statecraft stuff. And at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself why the Brits, and it's usually the Brits doing this, why the Brits go through this Ian Fleming novel level horse shit in order to stop a pipeline. Why can't they just kill the guy? Because they're trying to stop the pipeline and silence him rather than actually just kill him outright. Putin could care less about Navalny. As a matter of fact, Navalny being around actually is to Putin's advantage at this point. So Putin's got no motive, means, or opportunity to kill Navalny. He's got no reason to, any more than he's got reason to really influence the political process in Germany. Remember, it was the Germans, led by Gerhard Schroeder and Volkswagen and Siemens and all the rest of them, who wanted Nord Stream 2. And they came to the Russians and said, let's do Nord Stream 2 after South Stream imploded. It has nothing to do with the Russians wanting to exert undue political influence over the Germans. It's about us wanting to continue exerting undue political influence over the Germans, and for the neocons and the never-Trumpers and those guys to continually keep Russia down, because a Russia that is kept bound down with irrelevancies and threats to its border is a Russia that can't explode to the upside. And it's just that simple. Okay? And until these people are no longer in charge of U.S. foreign policy, until they're no longer writing the think tank papers and all the rest of it, until we're no longer graduating them from West Point, nothing is going to change. And so get used to it, but with every minor victory. And Navalny being silenced here is a major victory, actually, because we've attempted to create an opposition like Timoshenko in Ukraine and the one in Belarus whose name I can't pronounce, and that we keep failing to insert these people as the new leadership against our wishes. So watch this play out. I fully expect Merkel to hold the Greens in place. She'll give them another sop. She'll hold off any internal struggle within the CDU over this, because again, Nord Stream 2 is wanted by the most powerful people in Germany. And so anybody within Merkel's CDU speaking out against Nord Stream 2 is an obvious U.S. asset. Okay? Let's just, either a U.S. asset or a Soros asset or whatever. And again, there's no real straight through line here. As I said the other day, there's so many different people who are hacked off and can use Nord Stream 2 for their own political advantage, and this situation with Navalny, that it's just going to get more complicated and more murky as we go along. And it'll become a game of chess where in order to win the game, you'll be playing 5 games of chess at the same time, where a move on board 1 affects board 3 and a move on board 3 affects board 2. And it's like this big, huge mess. And that's what geopolitics, especially when it comes to Russia, looks like right now. But you can tell that these guys are losing because John Bolton is like writing op-eds in Belarusian newspapers in order to, blast Trump at this point. It's just nonsense. It's all crazy. They're all losing. But they're going to lose in such a way that they do as much damage as possible out the door. That's really the through line here. But Nord Stream 2 is going to get finished. I disagree with Peter. Told me behind the scenes in an email yesterday. He's like, don't believe that this is not a done deal, that they're going to stop Nord Stream 2. Like, they're not going to. It's not going to go through. Peter, come on. And he should know better as to who actually drives this policy. So, Nord Stream 1 got built. All the other ones got built. This one's going to get built. They were able to get South Stream killed because they put pressure on Bulgaria. And even now Bulgaria is looking at the situation going, hey, South Stream sounds great. The dam is going to flood, right? The flood is going to happen. The dam is going to burst and the flood's going to happen. And the Russians are going to put more pipelines into Europe. And Trump and Putin are going to meet on the sidelines of the G5 or the G7 or whatever it is. And they're going to cut a deal over this. Because, again, Trump is using this, I think, to reimagine the U.S.'s relationship between NATO and the World Bank and the IMF and the UN and all those things, while he retrenches U.S. power and U.S. spending at home. He's like, if we're going to run this massive budget deficit, we're not going to send the money overseas. We're bringing these people home. And we're not going to pay for Germany's defense anymore. We're not going to, that's nonsense. And the people who are screaming about this the most are the ones who want the European Union to be ascendant and for the United States to be drained of all of its vitality. And Trump understands this. And that's why I'm voting for him in the fall. All right. And it's just that simple. All right. So on that note, expect more violence. Expect a false flag operation of some form or another that galvanizes people again, or is going to attempt to galvanize people against Donald Trump and force him to react with violence that, to this point, he has refrained from using. And it's worked to his advantage. So, as this is an existential threat to the Davos crowd. They know that if Trump wins re-election and no deal Brexit goes through and all of this stuff happens, they're in serious trouble. They're going to lose everything. And the European Union is going to begin splintering. Or the European Union is not going to just begin splintering, but it's never going to reach the potential that they want it to reach. And it'll reach its crescendo in power over the next 10 years and then collapse after that. Okay? It'll never, ever, ever achieve the kind of preeminence and dominance that they want if Trump wins this election and a no-deal Brexit goes. I'm dead serious. It'll still get worse. It'll still get more powerful, but it's the potential peak power will have been blunted dramatically. We'll have flattened the EU's curve to kind of lay that out. So under those circumstances, and given how ruthless and how conscienceless these people are, how devoid of conscience these people are, expect everything between now and election day. And what I said to Alexander the other day is that everybody's getting an object lesson in the truth. They're waking up in the morning and finding out that the Fed has no answers. The markets are figuring this out, right? The Fed has no answers. The government doesn't have any answers for you. It doesn't know how to fix even the basic stuff. The police can't show up at your door. Everybody's buying guns. And everybody's getting a real big dose of self-reliance. I said, what the Davos crowd doesn't realize they're doing is they're making an entire generation of people like me who are going to go out and acquire skills and not run around with like chicken littles worried. They're going to begin to really bear down. And their first reaction is fear. And we've seen this during the Corona apocalypse. Now the next one is, all right, we're used to the fear. We're used to this level of anxiety. We still need to move forward. And then they're going to get stronger and stronger and stronger. That's what's coming. And because of that, there's going to be even more violence. And we'll see how it plays out. But I still don't think they're going to be able to pull this off. It's going to be ugly. But I think Trump eventually will prevail. And my prediction now is that Pelosi will end up in handcuffs. And that's what we're beginning to see in the markets now. Now, I honestly think that with the panic that we're seeing on the faces of people like Michel Barnier in Brexit negotiations, that the market's reaction on Thursday and Friday were to the reality that a no-deal Brexit is happening, as long as Boris Johnson, as disorganized and as disorganized and as much of a bad manager as he is going to navigate them across the finish line as long as Trump wins election. And even if Trump doesn't necessarily win the election outright on November 4th, the chaos that the strategy that the Democrats are employing means that the timeline, the fuse runs out on blowing up Brexit before the election is settled, if the Democrats are going to do what they're going to do. Therefore, they really have to start thinking in terms of no-deal Brexit. And that's why you're seeing the talking points that you're seeing. And I think that's what the markets are beginning to react to. I saw Friday as a sell everything day. The one chart I didn't put up this morning was and I don't have for you, and I apologize for it, is go look at a daily chart of the 10-year U.S. Treasury bond before we start talking about gold. It's very important. Because on Wednesday, I told you, hey, look, the euro can't close below $1.18, close with any strength above $1.18. And I think it has to do with the rally that we've had in treasuries. Well, treasury sold off hard on Friday. The 10-year sold off like 9 basis points on Friday. So go look at that chart and you'll see what I'm talking about. That the extreme volatility between 63 and 83 basis points in the 10-year bond over the last 7 or 8 trading days is telling you that the market doesn't know what to do. And we were in sell everything mode and raise dollars, which is the point now of the next 3 slides. And I only have 5 charts for you today because I've been kind of going overboard on the charts, and I think these have been getting a little too long in my estimation. So, gold sold off after seeing 2,000 again, broke up above the last week's high, which was a good sign, but couldn't close above it. Again, not the world's worst outcome given the strength of the correction that we saw in stocks this week. If you think this bar is bad, wait till I show you the bar for the Dow. Okay. So this is not bad. We broke the previous high, didn't throw any kind of engulfing bar against this bar, didn't even close below this low. This is all really strong. This is a really strong bit of support here between 1930 and 1950 in gold on a weekly closing basis. That's strong. It is. I don't really know what else to say about that. Yeah, we've got I think the reversal probability here is wrong. I'm not sure if I updated these statistics, to be honest with you. So ignore that stuff. Just look at this stuff over here. Watch this week to see if gold follows through to the downside. If it doesn't, then watch for a move above last week's high again. Breaking above last week's high one more time and closing above 1976 this week would be very strong. It's going to be a short trading week. It's going to be a lot of built up pressure. It's going to be 3 days worth of news and see what happens. Okay, but so far, it's been a pretty quiet news weekend, from my perspective. All right, rejected at 2,000, but it's not a big deal. We have the same chart effectively being created for silver, with the notable exception that silver never threw any kind of weekly reversal signal. Now remember, September is going to be a physical delivery month for silver on the COMEX. So they've made it through the latest gold delivery month, right? Because it's even numbers gold, odd numbers silver. Please correct me if I'm wrong about that. I'm almost positive that that's the case. These statistics have been updated. They are correct. And again, we had this, again, high tail here, high tail here, high tails here. There's no appetite for silver really above $28. At this point, we keep trying to push above it and it keeps getting rejected. That's fine. But there's no there's no appetite to keep it below 26 either. So mass run up and, a noisy yet pretty strong flag pattern here, or, whatever you want to call it, eighth node pattern or whatever. But we're getting consolidation in here. This is exactly kind of what I talked about 2 weeks ago. That if we didn't get any kind of technical reversal to the downside, that the most likely scenario would be that silver would just sit there with high volatility, right? Kind of carve out a new trading range in here. And it's exactly what it's doing. The silver looks good. Again, no technical reversal signal on the weekly level. The monthly chart looks great. The quarterly chart looks great. So as long as this doesn't break down technically, there's no leading indicator that anything has changed in terms of a multi-month or multi-quarter correction or even consolidation is what's coming, putting off a new all-time high for 2 or 3 years. We're looking at a situation now where we're putting off a new all-time high until maybe December. Okay, that's where we are because we've gotten no breakdown here. The silver looks pretty good. Just also to note that the silver to gold ratio may be forming a new bottom here. So that's the monthly close for August, and that's where we stand right now. Right? This could be a bottom, so let's watch to see what happens here. If silver doesn't move much, silver stays below $30 and gold breaks through 2,000. Not that I think that's likely. I think silver is going to lead here even for a little while longer. Remember, silver can stay. Silver can stay below this line, the trend line, for a long time. It has in the past. So we could be plumbing the depths down in here for a little while yet. We could have, this could easily be a scenario like we have here where we haven't created a major bottom in the gold to silver ratio. But I would tend to think with this big a move in this shorter period of time, this is probably a major bottom, and that gold will probably begin to outperform silver right here. But again, I'm just speculating. Okay, so watch to see how it plays out, as opposed to, take this with a grain, take this, salt this to taste. As to whether or not you should go, but you should flip to going. You should still be You should still be buying gold preferential to silver, regardless if it goes lower, because we're below the trend line. Right. So if you're buying gold and silver right now, you should be buying 70% gold, 30% silver. When you're up here, you should be buying 70% silver, 30%. Okay. Bitcoin. We had I am very sorry. I deleted the wrong chart for this. I deleted the weekly chart I built and kept the daily chart by mistake. The weekly chart of Bitcoin doesn't look good. Actually, it looks fine. But all that's really happened here is we've had a massive move down back towards 10 grand. I can use this chart and just tell you that this extends way down to here over the course of the week. And that there is a bit of a technical signal here, but it looks very strong that it's moved back in on a weekly chart level into this strong support here right around 10,000. So we've got a correction. We've got a dumping. They did the massive dumping operation on Tuesday. And yeah, there's been technical damage done to Bitcoin in the short term. Be interesting to watch it this week to see what happens. A move this week back above 10.5, which is this high here, would be the important thing for Bitcoin. Can we get back above 10.5? Because if we can get back above 10.5, then we've had a retest of the breakout point and the consolidation and the consolidation zone, and then it pushes higher. If not, Bitcoin could trade sideways in this back into this $10,000 range for a little while. Well, I guess it's probably going to depend on how strong the sell everything to raise dollars is. I don't think though that Bitcoin's going to be able to move much below 10 grand here, right? Simply because at this stock to flow ratio and this price, the Bitcoin can't drop below 9 or 10 grand without destroying the profitability of the network. And we've already seen that attempt early in the year. That's the big drop from 10 grand down to 4 grand that we saw in March, right? The euro. Now, what's interesting about this euro chart, so here we are on Wednesday, I said the euro was non-committal above $1.18, and yet here we are, we closed the week at $1.18.4, but we did hit a high of $1.20, and that high happened on Tuesday, I think, and we had a very strong move down on Thursday and Friday. Now, this is all technically higher highs and higher lows. This looks like an upwardly biased thing, upwardly biased extension, but of this uptrend. Technically, this is all still an uptrend. There's no reversal signal given, but the last 3 weeks have all been open high and close low, and down bars within the context of an uptrend. This is topping action. I don't give a damn what anybody says. This is anything. This is rank price manipulation. Now, how do you manipulate the euro? Well, you do so with central bank communications. You do so with all sorts of other hinky stuff. But at some point, the ECB is going to come out and say, we don't like where we are. They already have started to come out and say, we don't like where we are. The euro hit $1.20 and Lagarde was out there going, that's too high. Okay. But when we get the massive move to sell everything and get dollars, the euro continuing to be strong here within the currency markets is and could be the harbinger again of the realization that the market is beginning to deal with a no-deal Brexit. And I think that may have to be the best argument I can make at this point. Because the euro, if the euro spikes to $1.25, which was the 2018 high, let's just run the scenario out. Does anybody really think that Italy is competitive at $1.25? Germany's not competitive at $1.20. Germany's not competitive at $1.18. So if, remember that we're still dealing with this idiotic argument that weak currency reflects badly on the political leadership of the country. Now, that is true in emerging and frontier markets, right? But not in core economies like that. Not when you're talking about the euro, the yen, the pound, and the dollar. Okay? That's not, but they're making that argument. They want to make that argument. And so we keep seeing these things play itself out. I'm unconvinced that I mean, they can create the rally off of $1.06, fine. They can create the rally and push it through $1.14 because of the political changes to the European Commission, giving a tax and spend authority under the COVID-19 relief package in the new budget. But can they really take it above $1.20 and then blame it all on Trump and the political violence here in the United States? That's a good question. No. I think that this rally has reached its peak, and this is the end of the counter trend rally, or we're very close to the end of the counter trend rally within the bear market that is the euro versus the dollar. Okay? Because the big long-term chart is that the euro versus the dollar is bearish. Right? So we got $1.18.4 as the close, but this is still a very bearish bar in my mind. And then the Dow Jones. And this is what I'm talking about. We go from an all-time high threat on Wednesday. We were literally talking about an all-time high with a 15% chance of an all-time high on Wednesday, to the threat of a 2-bar reversal within 2 days and a massive bearish engulfing bar that only just neatly avoided into the close a 1-bar reversal signal where we traded well below this low for most of the day on Friday, but somehow we closed up here. Yeah. All right. Let's painting the tape is a kindness. So there we are. We're to that within 2 days. They're going to defend this low here and this high and this high, right? This range right here, they're going to defend this really hard for the 4 days this week because they don't want to throw the technical reversal signal to the downside. But if they do, but we'll see. But again, if money's flowing out of U.S. assets right here, Dow rolls over, the NASDAQ rolls over, U.S. Treasury rolls over, and that keeps the euro just firm enough, right, to look strong on the, relatively speaking, then we're setting up for the next layer of this. But I told you, and time again, while they may want to defend this in the short term, because they still want to run this weak dollar narrative, but at the same time they want to crash stocks. You can't do both at the same time. You can't have a weak dollar with Trump spending like a drunken sailor and then say, well, it's the money's not going to go into the stock market. That's nonsense. So you have to create some other issue where everybody's selling assets to get dollars. And that's kind of where we are. So because I think they really want this scenario between now and October. So let's watch for this. And remember, in the early stages of what happened back here in March, the euro spiked and then collapsed. Remember, there was those 2 weeks, there's 2 weeks back here where the euro first spiked and then collapsed. And we got this massive run up from $1.08 to $1.15 and then a move back to $1.06 within a 4-week period. And I think that we're going to be looking at a similar, we may be looking at a similar scenario. So we may see a spike on the euro back to $1.22 and then a collapse back to $1.10 or $1.08 once we reach past the peak. We could see something as dramatic as what we saw in March on US stocks. For political reasons, for fundamental reasons, for all of it. But and the thing here is, don't go overboard in your thinking. Don't get too excited about it. Okay? All that will do is confirm that after that correction, U.S. assets are going to go ballistic. And the Dow, treasuries, dollar, gold, silver are all going to rise together. Then eventually, Bitcoin will do what Bitcoin's going to. All right? That's the thesis. And if Trump wins, that's what's going to happen. All of that craziness shifts to Europe, and the euro collapses later in the year. The Europeans are riding high right now. They think they've got the Americans exactly where they want them. Too bad the American people don't want to go along with this. And it's really going to come down to that. All right, that's what I've got for you this morning. Sorry about some of the little things that I didn't get right with the charts. These things happen. But, and for any of you who are worried, I'm feeling much better today. I don't think I've been sleeping very well. And I finally got a really good night's sleep last night. And, you know, I was just late getting things started this morning. And eventually I just said, hey, look, I got to get this thing out the door. So, because I get like that. Like, oh, well, it's not perfect, but we're doing it. Because it's not perfect, but we're doing it. But I did get a good 9 hours of sleep last night, which I don't normally do. So that's a good thing. All right, you guys take care. You be well. We will talk on Wednesday. And if you have any questions, comments, as always, throw them in the chat relative to our comment up on this post. Love what I'm seeing in the comment threads on a lot of these. You guys are really bringing up great ideas and making great comments and asking good questions. I love to see the interaction. It keeps me energized, and it keeps me engaged, which is always a great thing. All right, you guys take care. You be well. We'll talk soon. Have a great holiday tomorrow. Keep your stick on the ice.